Hello, and welcome back to Dumb Defenses, the podcast where we go around the world and through time to bring you the weirdest legal theories. I'm Frankie.
I'm Judah.
And, Judah, what fresh hell have you brought for us today?
Okay, so this is not fresh hell.
Oh,
This is, I mean,
mildly
it's been
stale
ongoing
hell?
It's been ongoing hell. But I wanted to talk to you about Hunter Biden.
Okay, that is mildly stale hell.
No, it's not, because it goes with our topic of the week. So, Hunter Biden.
I must have missed this.
Have you not heard this?
I may not have.
Hunter Biden is, of course, the son of former President Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
He's a person in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And the right wing has really gone after Hunter Biden in particular.
Yeah.
Accusing him of all kinds of things that were proven absolutely false.
Yep.
But then, out of nowhere, he shows up on a podcast that I've never listened to.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, go ahead, listen to it. The podcast is I've Had It with Jennifer Welch.
Okay.
And he asserted that there's a closeted gay mafia, or what he calls it, a closetocracy, among right-wing politicians in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, he says, okay, so there's this it's an open secret. There's all these super, repressed, closeted, but sexually active,
Mm-hmm.
specifically gay men
I believe it.
in power in DC. And he's been on other things, and they're like, do you really believe this? And yeah, 100%. He's doubling down. This has come back to attention recently, but he had some theories on Seth Meyers a couple of years ago. But now this is going around, and what I'm loving is just how stern he is about this. He's just, listen.
He's like,
listen.
This is truth.
This is the truth. And I remember a period, I would say second term of George W. Bush.
Okay.
Where there was this very active religious movement that claimed to be able to change your sexuality through what they called reparative therapy.
Conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy.
Which is child abuse.
Yeah. It is. I know. I've experienced some of it. It definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
And this had been hanging around for a long time, this idea that, oh, here's all these things that are going to fix your sexuality, and which doesn't need fixing.
For those who don't have video, because we don't do videos yet, I just said fixed with air quotes very, very quietly.
It's not fixed. There was this prominent movement, the most prominent one, that linked itself strongly to some very high-powered right-wing political groups. And it was called Exodus International. And supposedly their purpose, we're seeing a lot of decades of work come to fruition, and a lot of queer and trans rights starting to get protected across the country, not federally, about this time. And so they're coming in and saying, oh, well, we can fix you. It's a mutable thing. And there was this series, like one right after the other, where all of the profiled leaders of this Exodus movement were caught, like in gay bars, or picking up sex workers, or people who just left and spoke out against it. There's a documentary about it. I felt really bad for her, this woman, very, very young woman who was like stuffed into this movement against her will as a literal child, who was very young, was talking about it. She's now happily married to a woman. She left, and these people who used to lead the movement have come out and spoken out against it. I think two of them were in a relationship with each other. Find love in the most awkward place. So that happened, and shortly thereafter, there was a very anti-gay United States senator named Larry Craig, who was busted by an undercover police officer at an airport doing this indication, this foot tapping thing that you like bump against somebody else's foot, and it's a sign that you want to get down in this airport bathroom. And he's got this famous quote that like he wasn't trying to do this foot tapping thing, just when he poops, he's got a really wide stance. But his leg was like under the divider.
Under the next door.
Next door. This has come out a few times, and now nearly 20 years later, because the Larry Craig thing happened in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
We have Hunter Biden being like, there's still this closetocracy, and there's all these repressed, open secret gay men who are privately having sexual relations with other men and publicly trying to tear apart all of gay rights and denouncing gay people. And I just wanted to bring that forward because I watched a subsequent interview with Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and find it so we could put it in the show notes.
That'd be great, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I never really thought that much about Hunter Biden, but I like him.
Yeah. With how much stuff is going on these days, too, I wouldn't doubt that there's some of that going on.
Well, what you can take away with you is this argument that former United States Senator Larry Craig
has a really wide stance.
I mean, how wide do you just think
was
about
he tall, like long-legged, maybe?
Well, let's just Google how tall was Larry Craig. There's no
indication,
no public records documenting the measurements of.
Because like I could imagine if somebody's like super tall, because some of those stalls are tiny, right?
But his feet were tapping on another person's foot in the stall next door. So it's not just like he's in the other stall. He's gone and he's hitting the foot of somebody else and tapping on it to be like, hey, you want some action?
I mean, I am a small person. I am 5'2". Okay? I am little. And there are some public restroom stalls that are very claustrophobic for me.
Okay, so I guess you're defending this homophobic senator.
I'm not necessarily defending. The autism is like, what is the physics of this?
It says here on Pioneer Press that he was less than 6 feet tall.
Okay, so less of an excuse to be like, I just have a wide stance.
I just have a wide stance. So you tell us, listeners, and I hope this makes a clip, how far apart are your feet when you're taking a dump?
Yeah.
Because it would have to be 4 or 5 feet apart, your feet. With your ass still on the toilet.
There's some like reaching going on there. I don't know. Anyways.
Okay. So I can't believe you hadn't heard about Hunter Biden's
I had not.
Closetocracy theory.
I had not. I mean, he's not the only one, right?
No.
Like, there are plenty of other people insinuating that various members of Congress are in fact gay. But I had not heard that this is a theory that he broadcasts.
Bless him. Yep. Bless you for saying what we're all thinking. Hunter Biden.
Yep.
I wanted to do something a little bit more lighthearted since we're doing two pretty
heavy, yeah.
Pretty heavy. Anyway, Senator Larry Craig, the wide pooper.
Yes.
Ultimately did plead guilty to just disorderly conduct.
For playing footsie with the cop?
Yeah, I think he was charged with solicitation.
Oh, yeah. That is a thing that they do.
I'm looking at a picture of him. He's not cute.
Yeah.
There's this mugshot. Nope.
Well, we can drop that in the show notes also. So things that we're talking about today are the opening riots that led to the current Pride movement. I'm going to be talking about the Stonewall riot. My sources are a article called June 29th, 1961, Stonewall Riots from the Zinn Education Project, a PBS article on milestones in the American gay rights movement, Today in History on June 28th from the Library of Congress, Queer Power, a column in Rat Subterranean News, July 1969 edition, titled Fags Against Pigs in Stonewall Bust. I will be putting that into the show notes because it is a primary source and it's a lot of fun. So we're looking at the 1950s, where there were increasing movements against the gay community. Such things included, on December 15th, 1950, the Senate distributed a report entitled Employment of Homosexuals and Other Sex Perverts in Government to Members of Congress, just to give you an idea of which direction they were leaning. The government, as part of the Lavender Scare during the Cold War, was investigating federal employees' sexual orientation. And during this, 4,380 military members were discharged and 500 federal employees were fired as a result. The report stated that, quote, those who engage in overt acts of perversion lack the emotional stability of normal persons, end quote. And this leads into the next thing that happened. In 1952, the American Psychiatric Association listed homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance in the first edition of the DSM. The DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual for Mental Health, is the handbook for diagnosing mental illness. Not to be used for forensic evaluations, and yet we do it anyways. It says in the disclaimer, like, please don't use this for forensic evaluations.
Well, another anti-gay leader who is, I think, not as well known today, but does famously have, I believe, a gay granddaughter, is Anita Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
She came later in the late 70s. She was best known for being a spokesperson for Florida orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why orange juice needs a spokesperson. It's orange juice.
Right.
And she started this vitriolic campaign called Save Our Children.
Allow me to roll my eyes out loud.
That was trying to overturn a local ordinance in Florida that was banning discrimination based on sexual orientation. And she was pretty awful. I mean, just very open, saying the inside thoughts out loud.
Yeah, which is coming back.
Which is back. It's back with force.
It's back with force.
But something to hold in your heart on those dark days like today is a gay rights activist famously pied her on live television.
Nice.
And for all of our queer and trans listeners, we are a part of your community, and I'm going to share with you Anita Bryant getting pied, and I want you to have that in your heart.
Yep, that will be in the show notes. So when the DSM came out with this diagnostic criteria in it, there was definitely some criticism of it due to lack of empirical evidence, because as it turns out, queer people are not inherently bad. There were other opinions turning against this theory later in the 50s after Evelyn Hooker did a study that showed that queer and straight people performed similarly on Rorschach testing and other psychological testing.
Even though Rorschach testing is
bullshit, but it was commonly used at the time, and the fact that people were scoring similarly whether they were gay or straight, even though it's a bullshit test, if people are performing equally on the bullshit test, then it's still statistically significant.
Yes. So on this classifying queerness as an illness,
sociopathic illness, Sweden
adopted that policy later, and they classified homosexuality as an illness, kind of as it's out of vogue in the States.
So gender dysphoria, I believe, is still in the DSM-5. But I think that is more of as necessity, because you can't get medical treatment without a diagnosis.
Yes. Okay. So that's not where I was going.
Okay.
Let me finish my thought. So, homosexuality was classified as an illness in Sweden in 1979.
That's recent.
Briefly, because a bunch of Swedes in protest called in gay to work.
Well played.
Just feeling too gay to come into work.
I love it.
And that is one of my favorite
That is
protests
amazing.
ever.
That
I'm
is
sorry, I'm
amazing.
feeling a little too gay to come in. You have to give me sick time.
That's amazing. Some other stuff that was going on in the 50s. On April 27th, 1953, Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10450, banning homosexuals from working for the federal government or any contractors, citing, quote, security risks.
And he's another where there's closet rumors.
Where there's closet
Rumors
rumors.
abound.
Yep. So laws regulating the queer community were abundant throughout the United States at the state level. There were laws criminalizing homosexual conduct, as well as utilizing nuisance laws such as disorderly conduct to harass the queer community. It was also illegal to sell alcohol to queer people in New York City until 1966. Under New York Penal Code 240.35 sub 4, an individual could not wear more than 3 items of clothing that did not match their gender assigned at birth.
And I would like to actually pick it up here in 1966 with that law.
Yep.
To talk about the Compton's cafeteria riot.
Right, because that actually chronologically happened before Stonewall.
Yes,
Okay.
3 years.
Go for it.
Before Stonewall.
Yep.
So talking about these so-called cross-dressing laws,
Yep.
they are prevalent across the United States. And if we're thinking about a framework of understanding queer and trans people at the time, it's not at all like we understand queer and trans people today.
Correct.
So in a lot of ways, historically, you don't see separation in gender expression and sexual orientation. There is not what we understand today as like transgender movement. So there's kind of cross-dressers, drag queens, and trans people that are shoved into kind of the same melting pot. And a lot of that is understood kind of socioculturally as just kind of queerness, which then is a slur.
Yes.
Well, San Francisco, for a long time, because of its international connections, Navy connections, being a port city, has been a haven for queer and trans people and gender diverse people. But in 1966, it's still very dangerous and very outlawed to be a queer and trans person in San Francisco. And I was first made aware of the Compton's Cafeteria riot because of a fabulous work of art called Tales of the City. And it's a really seminal queer work, and I recommend checking it out, where that was referenced. There is a documentary by Susan Stryker that interviews people who are actually involved in the Compton's Cafeteria riots. Now, say what you want about Susan Stryker, because she's not without her problems. Seeing that work, I still think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at web archive articles from glbthistory.org, and there is a good article called Before Stonewall, where there was the Cooper's Donuts and the Compton's Cafeteria riots by Daniel Villarreal. And important side note is that today, LGBTQ plus activists are fighting against the current ownership of the building and fighting for recognition for the Compton's Cafeteria building, which is currently owned by a private prison corporation with close ties to ICE.
Ew.
Yes. So you can currently support that effort to reclaim the Compton's Cafeteria site from a private prison company, which is pretty high on the level of peak evilness and was exactly the kind of people benefiting the most from queer and trans oppression, and still do today. So there's these laws, these anti-cross-dressing laws, and the other important thing that's drawing trans people to the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, and specifically trans people, is an individual by the name of Dr. Harry Benjamin. Dr. Harry Benjamin is one of the absolute first and probably first public physician to provide medical gender-affirming treatments. He famously treated a woman named Christine Jorgensen, who's the first trans woman really public and out with her transness in the United States. And also in 1966, before the riot, he published a book called The Transsexual Phenomenon, which begins a medical understanding of trans people and is a push towards acceptance. Also in San Francisco, in the Tenderloin District, is the Glide Memorial Church. And people might be surprised to learn how involved a Christian church was in this really early queer and trans rights. So they're a super progressive, radical offshoot of the United Methodist Church. And they are open and accepting and advocating on behalf of queer and trans people in San Francisco in the 60s. And a lot of organizing is going on in the church.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome. And as we will see in the Stonewall riots, a lot of similar social conditions are existing for specifically trans women and trans femmes.
Mm-hmm.
They are hyper marginalized.
Yes.
Most frequently targeted by law enforcement, regularly victims of violence, and a large number of trans women and trans femmes are forced into sex work because that was the option available to them, and it's also really dangerous.
It's super dangerous.
What was particularly making this extra dangerous, also, sex work is real work.
It is, as long as it's done, as long as people are allowed to do it ethically, right? As long as people are being treated as employees and as workers and not as ragdolls.
Yes, and that is not something that was available. So businesses are kicking people out. They don't want, it's called hustling. They don't want any hustlers in.
Mm-hmm.
And the early gay rights movement started what we still see today. It was like, we are gay and they are trans and we are okay. And
there was a division,
yeah, and we can be normal. I'm normal in big quotes, but they can't, and we are not them. And so even in gay clubs, transgender women and femmes are pushed out.
Yep.
So where do they go? They are going to the Compton's Cafeteria. By the way, the documentary is called Screaming Queens, The Riot at Compton's Cafeteria. It's from 2005. So they are collecting and socializing at just like a regular cafeteria joint. It's not a bar, it's not a club, it is a cafeteria. And also just kind of like hanging out. And the cafeteria managers, it was kind of a chain, so there was more than one Compton's Cafeteria, didn't like these people hanging out in there, so regularly called the cops on them. Regularly. And this night in 1966, it was described by a woman who was there as being really hot. Compton's calls the cops on a group of women for being raucous and loitering. The cops show up and get pretty immediately violent with this group of women. Women are trans femmes. Some people aren't around to tell us, how they're identifying. We don't want to historically put a label on people. Right. And a woman stands up and hucks a cup of hot coffee in one of the cops' faces. Boom, just chucks a cup of coffee at him. And then the cops start going really at the trans women. We'll just call them ladies, because a lot of them are around to say, yeah, I'm a lady. They are over it. They are over it. And they fight back. Well, who joins in the ruckus? But two groups of queer youth, the Vanguard and a group called the Street Orphans, which is a group of radical lesbian young people. And I love them all. And so they have this big fight, they take it to the street. The Compton's big picture window is smashed. And they're going after each other. The next day, the Vanguard and the Street Orphans organize a massive protest in front of Compton's. Compton's had replaced the big picture window, and they smashed that. The kids are all right. Now they're
Yeah.
older kids, but the kids are all right.
Mm-hmm.
Those groups are really some that are sponsored by the Glide Memorial Church. The riot itself generates a movement in San Francisco. And what's really interesting about the Compton's cafeteria riot that is different than how we see Stonewall being portrayed is this is really a trans-specific
Mm-hmm.
movement, riot, and the after effects of that riot. There's an article I didn't put in there and I didn't read, but Young Homos Picket Comptons in one of the local San Francisco.
The titles of these articles are amazing.
The Vanguard later that year host a protest of the massive police sweeps that are happening in the Tenderloin that are targeting queer and trans people, and they call it the street sweep.
Mm-hmm.
And they had about 50 people, and they're literally sweeping up the streets and cleaning up, but they're also trying to demonstrate that this is trash. What we're cleaning up is trash, and that queer and trans people are not garbage. Their slogan was all trash is before the broom, and it's pushing back against the idea that this community, the trans and queer community, is trash. And from this riot, a couple of years later, an organization called the National Transsexual Counseling Unit is formed, which is thought to be, in Bio Records, the first ever peer-run counseling support resource for trans people in the United States and in the world.
Yep.
And this event is starting to kick off all the movements that make San Francisco the queer haven that it became.
Yep.
And once again, we are relying on trans women and trans femmes, but then it's like trans men don't exist, even though there's like this trans man who funded a lot of this research and a lot of these gender clinics. We see other gender clinics popping up in large cities across the United States. Some are Harry Benjamin's clinics, but it's seen here that it didn't solve the police violence issue against trans people, and that's still a major issue, but the collective action and how this drew the community together decreased the amount of violence and oppression that trans people were experiencing in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And that Compton's cafeteria went out of business not too long after the riots because people just stopped going. So Stonewall has been unfairly co-opted as a gay rights movement issue. Compton's cafeteria never had that rework, and it remains less well known, but I'm going to argue not less important for what's happening across the United States. And like I said, there's a really good set of queer work called Tales of the City, and you can watch the mini series on Netflix, and it's got Olympia Dukakis, and nobody knows who she is, and I love Olympia Dukakis. She's also in Steel Magnolias. Just let that out there. So that is the Compton's cafeteria riot, and it should be celebrated.
It should. And then moving on to Stonewall. The Stonewall Inn was a bar in Greenwich Village, New York, that catered not only to the queer community, but also a racially diverse community, which was also a pretty big thing back then.
And especially mob run.
Yes. It was one of the most popular gay bars in New York City and run by the mafia. But essentially, as long as it turned a profit, the mafia didn't really care what happened, because that's really all they cared about. So it was an unlicensed establishment because even though the law against selling alcohol to queer people had sunsetted in 1966, there was still a practice of denying liquor licenses to establishments that catered to the queer community. So on Saturday, June 28th, 1969, about 1 a.m., police raided the bar. They arrived in plain clothes with a search warrant under the guise of cracking down on unlicensed alcohol sales, but of course the true reason behind the raids were to rid the city of, quote, sexual deviants. They began interrogating patrons and locked the doors so people were locked into the establishment. Those who had ID on them were eventually let out, but those who were cross-dressing as well as the employees were not let out. Police started arresting people, and there is confirmation that at least 2 of the drag queens that were there were among the arrested. Unfortunately for the police, the patrons were ready, and they would not go quietly. As people were being released outside, as they were like, hey, here's my ID, okay, you can leave, a crowd was beginning to gather of around 300 to 400 people, taunting the cops. One first-hand account said the cops yelled, "Against the wall, faggots," and the crowd responded, "Beat it off, pigs," which is just fantastic. So a quote from Full Over the Moon by Howard Smith, which was from the Village Voice magazine, July 3rd, 1969, said, "The turning point came when the police had difficulty keeping a dyke in the patrol car. 3 times she slid out and tried to walk away. The last time, a cop bodily heaved her in. The crowd shrieked, 'Police brutality! Pigs!' A few coins sailed through the air, escalated to nickels and quarters. A bottle, another bottle. Pine says, 'Let's get inside. Lock ourselves inside. It's safer.'" So
that's rock and roll. That's punk rock right there.
Yeah. So the squad car eventually drove off and was replaced with a paddy wagon, likely to accommodate additional arrests. The crowd began banging on the wagon. People started shouting for the people that they knew were detained inside by name, and people began throwing pennies and beer cans at the wagon. There was talk of freeing people from the van and turning it over, but that didn't wind up happening. And in the chaos, there was a scuffle at the door, someone who didn't want to be detained, multiple cops were working to secure him, and multiple protesters worked to free him, and while the cops were distracted, the people in the unguarded van escaped.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that part.
I love the
Hell
story.
Yeah. Get out.
So the van ultimately pulled away, leaving the cops by themselves to either run for their lives or barricade themselves inside the Stonewall Inn. And this is when the true pandemonium broke out. Bottles, rocks, trash cans, and a parking meter were thrown against the building. A makeshift wooden wall blocking the front plate glass windows was taken down, and the parking meter was used as a battering ram for the crowd to gain entry. The cops were, quote, "scared shitless," and dodging projectiles. Nobody was trying to calm or deter the crowd, and the cops began drawing their guns, aiming them at the crowd. Objects were being thrown back and forth until a cop, apparently at the loss of what else to do, hurled his service weapon at the crowd.
He just threw his gun at him?
He just chucked his gun. It wound up hitting the door frame and landing on the ground. Luckily, it didn't fire. So, as this is all just going into complete pandemonium, riot officers had arrived and began aiming fire hoses at the rioters through the door. Someone lit a trash can on fire and shoved it through the window. It was unclear whether the trash can was going in or out of the building when it was shoved through the window. When people heard sirens, they began spilling out, and all told, an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 people had collected outside, mostly looky-loos rather than rioters. But still, that's a fuck ton of people.
It's a town of people.
So by 4 a.m., the crowd was dispersing and word was quickly spreading. That same evening, so this all started at 1 a.m. By 4 a.m., the crowd was dispersing, but then that same evening, thousands of protesters gathered at and near the Stonewall Inn, and the protesting spilled over into the following week, lasting a total of 6 days. There was another violent uprising during the riot the following Wednesday, and so that was about 4-ish days in. The raid on the Stonewall Inn sparked 3 days of riots and protests. One source said 3 days, one source said 6. Riots and protests in the streets of Greenwich Village. Thousands of protesters filled the streets, though there was minimal news coverage. And while there had been activism and advocacy before, the Stonewall riots are hailed as the beginning of the modern LGBTQ plus advocacy movement, and activists began cropping up all over the place, representing the interests of multitudes of the identities in the queer community. When people say the first Pride was a riot, they meant Stonewall, because on the following year, on June 28, 1970, the first Pride March was held. It was called the Christopher Street Liberation Day, named after the street the Stonewall Inn stood on, and was the culmination of Gay Pride Week held June 22nd to 28th, 1970.
Rock on.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew so much. I didn't know about the
The
paddy
people
wagon
escaping.
escape. Oh man, that's good. I like that. That's another fun fact to tuck away in your heart.
Oh, yeah. No, the police were wholly unprepared. They thought they were just going to go in and serve a search warrant and arrest some people, but they were wholly unprepared, and the patrons were completely prepared for what was about to go down. And they used every advantage that they could, just their sheer numbers, the ability to confuse these cops who were clearly caught flat-footed, and then just hurling whatever, like fucking taking a parking meter and using it as a battering ram. So much just sheer brute creativity and anger
It's
coming
the
together.
culmination of
Yeah.
so much of this anger
Mm-hmm.
that, because I had read somewhere that Stonewall was targeted that night because the mob had failed to pay kickbacks to law enforcement.
Wouldn't be
That's
surprised.
what we saw people coming in, that there had to be this kickback system, and there hadn't been a kickback, so we had to let them arrest some people. This is a community that's being chased from place to place
Mm-hmm.
and just had it. It's just like, we've had it. We've got
Mm-hmm.
this critical mass and we're done.
Yep.
And we have the icons that came from this: Miss Major,
Yep.
Sylvia Rivera,
Yep.
and Marsha P. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all trans femmes of color.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera formed STAR, an
Mm-hmm.
organization where sex workers, trans women, were working the streets to get money and houses for human children who had had to run away and came to New York for shelter,
Yeah.
developing this familial system. And if you want another fantastic must-watch historical documentary, Paris is Burning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is set later. It's in
Yeah.
the 80s, I think, the
80s.
early 80s, but it shows the system of drag houses and all the different forms of drag and voguing, and it's a 10 out of 10
Mhm.
must watch for queer history.
Yeah. And Stonewall has that intersectionality of both the queer community and the community of color, that just both and were so repressed and legislated against and shoved in a corner for so long, and everybody was just fucking done.
Well, you know how I love a fun fact?
Mm-hmm.
When I was in college, I did a huge project where I by hand analyzed thousands of advertising images
Oh my god.
that were compiled by GLAAD,
Mm-hmm.
targeted towards the queer community. And through that, I thought, let's answer the question, why do lesbians love Subarus?
I hope you got credit for this.
Well, my project was actually on representation of queer relationships
Mm.
in media over time. And so I did this project somewhere around 2010. But in that, I got to answer, why do lesbians love Subarus?
So why do lesbians love Subarus, Judah?
Subaru, not an American company,
Right.
is kind of floundering in the United States in the early 90s. So they do a focus group about who is still buying Subarus consistently in America. So we didn't know why lesbians were already buying them, but in the early 90s, they narrowed in on, well, lesbians are buying our cars. So that's a group that we can identify that's still buying Subarus in the United States, is
Mm-hmm.
queer women.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like pulling back from that,
They just
Subaru
leaned in.
Subaru's like, we're going all in, and we are going to market to queer women. So there's different types of gay representation. So this is what we call queer coded, where it's not like super overt, but
Mm-hmm.
they had print ads that came out with license plates on the vehicles that are queer coded, like Camp Out, P-Town, and my favorite, Xena Lover.
Nice.
And they also did a really important thing to target it on the queer community, is that they hired one of our first major openly queer women in public eye, Martina Navratilova. And I'm not a tennis person. I understand she was a phenomenal tennis player. Good for her. I know her as a famous gay lady. So she's a spokesperson. They start sponsoring Pride, and really importantly, they openly and are among the first corporations in the United States, period, to offer benefits to same-sex couples, regardless of like, there's no domestic partnership, but you could still get benefits working at Subaru. You saw a lot of people jumping on like the Pride bandwagon later on, like banks and evil corporations.
Yeah.
Subaru's in there doing this when it's still dangerous.
Yeah.
They're like, you know who's our market? Is gay people, specifically gay women who appreciate a durable, utilitarian vehicle that just works.
That just works, yeah.
It just
You can drive into the ground.
I mean, those 90s Subarus, you still see them on the road. It's like, how
They
many
are bulletproof, yeah.
Yeah, my car has 800,000 miles on it. So early adopters into queer positive. You see some alcohol companies first. Absolute Vodka starts doing very overtly queer ads in the early 80s. And Miller, Budweiser. But for things that are not alcohol, our next niche is Subaru.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Budweiser, because they did a partnership 3-4 years ago with a trans individual, I believe. And people started posting social media videos of them like taking their shotgun and just blasting cases of Bud Light, because how dare you tie our super masculine beer to this trans person?
No, they have been since mid-late 80s.
Yeah.
They have been very
Tell
openly.
that to the people on Facebook who think that it was a betrayal for this partnership to happen.
Well, if you're going back through things that are not like adult products or designed, I'm thinking of like adult products that are really designed for the queer community.
Right.
You see like Leather Daddy stuff, you know, marketing just in the Advocate. Miller, Bud Light, Subaru, Absolute Vodka was the first.
Yep.
Are in there, and they're like, yeah, no, we're being open in our support of the LGBTQ plus community, and they have for decades. And so if you want to see like, hey, why, you know, why are so many queer people, especially queer women, driving Subarus? It's because Subaru
has been supporting them
now for more than 30 years.
Yep.
So here's a little fun fact. You can tag that? Why do so many lesbians drive Subarus?
Yep.
I think we can still love a Subaru.
Yeah, I mean, my husband just bought one, so.
I've driven Subarus. I think we can still love a Subaru.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about historical queer community stuff. And, you know, I started off my talk a little bit talking about the Lavender Scare, and Judah talked about the Lavender Scare a little bit when we talked about McCarthyism a few weeks back. It's coming back round. We are dealing with all sorts of bathroom law, which I had my own like bathroom law experience that I don't think I've told you about. So I have family in South Carolina. I was visiting South Carolina, who I'm pretty sure has passed a bathroom bill, or at least if they haven't, and I thought they had, I don't recall if they actually have or not, but I was concerned that they had. And so I was doing what I was supposed to do and using the restroom that matched my gender assigned at birth, although my birth certificate has an X on it. So the cleaner lady was like, you need to use the other one. And I was like, no, I was assigned female at birth. I'm following the law. This is where I'm supposed to be. And she like didn't understand what I said. I was using less explicit language, but I felt like I was sitting there yelling at her, I have a vagina.
It's
And like she was just like, woo. And I just went in and peed. It's a women's room. It's all stalls anyways. Who flying gives a fuck?
Oh my gosh. Let me reel back. All of this is so confusing to our European friends
Who all have non-gender bathrooms.
who have lovely floor-to-ceiling doors.
Yeah. In
So
non-gendered bathrooms.
In non-gendered bathrooms.
And you each get your own little personal bathroom inside of a larger bathroom.
So our bathroom designs are also really inaccessible for a lot of people. If you've ever tried to have diarrhea silently in a public restroom,
it's not possible.
The way specifically only the United States does public restrooms doesn't work for you. And transphobia can affect anyone. It's just a perception of being trans. So I walked down the street. I look like a meatball that rolled across a barbershop floor. I never get misgendered.
But I get misgendered both ways. It's interesting. The people who know me more, not like more personally, because people who actually know me will properly gender me, but like judges and prosecutors, people who I know acquaintance-wise will tend to misgender me female. Random strangers will misgender me male. Which is like, eh.
So I'm a trans man, I look like this, and I have IBS. Do you want me going into the ladies' room?
Well, so that's the thing, right? When these bathroom bills first started coming out, I saw an article about two cisgendered women, each accusing the other of being a trans man. So good job protecting women, if that's the ultimate goal of things.
There have also been a grand total of zero reported incidents of a trans woman attacking or attempting to attack another woman in the restroom. None. Zero. The amount is zero.
Yeah. Yeah. Because turns out trans people go into the bathroom to pee.
Well, for me, I have IBS. Could be anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I gotta pee. I don't care about anybody else in there. I'm just gonna go pee.
When I was still transitioning for about 2 years, I had chronic bladder infections because I was so scared to go to the bathroom, and I wouldn't drink enough water because I never wanted to have to go to the bathroom outside of my home because I was so worried about getting attacked. And then what I experienced a lot of in early transition is getting called the bad F word.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people are oh, I'm confused, so we're going to call you this. I had somebody throw a beer bottle at me when I was walking in downtown Eugene and yell that at me.
Yeah, and I am non-binary. I am purposefully presenting as somewhere in between because that's where I'm comfortable because gender is a fucking construct that shouldn't exist. Anyways.
Can I tell you a cute story?
Well, let me. Okay. So I do tend to still use, if I have to use a gendered bathroom, I do tend to still use the ladies' room because I don't feel safe using the men's room. Because who the fuck knows if some jackass is going to see my long hair and think, ooh, I'm going to take advantage of this person, right? I feel significantly safer using the women's rooms because it's all fucking stalls.
You know what Megan said when you came out to me as non-binary? Do you remember?
About damn time?
No, she goes...
Oh, no, you said about damn time.
I said about damn time, and Megan goes, I knew it. So...
I'm glad everybody else knew before I did.
So here's a cute story back from when I was living in Eugene, and I was just kind of testing out being in faith community, and I wound up not staying. But I go, and there's this sweet older woman... very sweet, very earnest, very well-meaning, and somebody had told her that I was trans, and her experience was exclusively with trans women. So she thought that I was just like a butch trans woman with a beard, and so she would run around yelling at people if they called me he,
Oh
And she's like,
no.
listen, it doesn't matter what she looks like. If she's a girl, then she's a girl. And then later I had to sit down and explain to her the concept of trans men, and she felt really
Oh.
bad.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I just like so genuinely appreciate knowing that no matter what, you were in my corner,
Yeah.
that you thought, hey, if this person is saying that they are a lady, then this person is a lady and I will fight to the death for you. And I was like,
Mhm.
let me explain about, do you know about trans men? She did not. She was in her 80s.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like all of the focus in the public light is about trans women because apparently who gives a shit about trans men being in men's spaces, right? Like when all the talk about the bathroom bills, the sports bills, which there are no trans NCAA. I don't
No,
sport.
that last recorded of any major sport, there was of the like 150,000 athletes in the United States that there were 6 trans people
Yeah.
total.
Yeah. And none of them are in college sports. I'll just say
Yeah.
college sports. None of them are in college sports. So this whole like we must protect our girls from having to compete against men. First of all, when you go on hormone therapy, your body stops making the other hormone, right? Like I had a conversation with my hormone doc at one point being like, "Hey, my family does menopause kind of early. How does that interact with the with medications that you're giving me?" And she was like, "You're already in menopause
Yeah,
because of the
totally.
testosterone." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
That's it's a hormone replacement therapy.
yeah.
It replaces it.
Yeah.
There's a really it's old now, like 20 years old. There was a Canadian downhill mountain biker named Michelle Dumarek, who made Canadian sports history by transitioning and competing as a woman, as her own gender. I think she had to take a break from sports. I want to say, like, this lady is brave as shit.
Mhm.
Because she is like the first, and it's in downhill mountain biking, not traditionally known as a heavily gendered sport. And she had to go through so much invasive testing
Mhm.
for her to be able to compete in the women's downhill mountain biking,
Yep.
and established that her body composition on estrogen and progesterone was, besides her bone structure, was identical to someone who is assigned female at birth and has not taken any other hormones. So
Right.
besides her bone structure, which did not provide her an advantage in downhill mountain biking, and I don't know if I can even find that anymore
Well,
because it's so old,
and
but I remember.
there's research that shows that even like elite athletes when they transition from male to female, they don't go from first to first. They go from like first to like 10th, right? They actually lose place amongst the field when they transition because of their body needing to relearn how to build muscle when they don't have the testosterone.
Transgender men, I am fully accepting that I am in so much less danger. Not zero. New hate crime in Spokane. A trans man was horribly, horrifically beaten in a
Mhm.
transphobic attack, and the Spokesman Review published his full name and address in the newspaper.
You fucking kidding me?
This was like last week.
Oh my god.
Horrible. So it's still very, very high.
Yeah.
Much lower than a white trans woman and so much lower than a trans woman of color.
Yep.
Their risk for being murdered 10 years ago was like 1 in 10.
Mhm.
Uh, so hashtag support trans women.
Yeah. Well, if you are in a state, if you're in an area which is trying to pass these archaic bills about which bathroom to use, talk to your legislators, talk to your
Talk to your neighbors about how stupid it is. I want you, if you have a bathroom bill coming up in your state and you want to help convince someone, I want you to tell them and show them this video that I would have to use the ladies' room looking exactly like this,
Mhm.
and I have IBS. Show that to your friends and neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Trans people have been around forever.
For as long as there have been people.
For as long as there have been people, there have been trans people, there have been queer people, there have been people who fall in love with gender diverse people.
Well, my mom just pointed out, you are, as we have established, Jewish.
Yes.
Like, super duper.
Yes.
If we're talking about very historic biblical expressions of gender, Judaism has 8.
Yeah. Yep.
Thousands of years of history.
Yeah, thousands of years of history. I'm not going to go through and list all of them, but
because you don't know them.
Yeah, that's the main part of it. There's actually a lot of stuff, not just like the Torah and the rest of the Parsha, but in the teachings of Rambam and stuff like that, that modern day reads really liberal, sort of like how there is rabbinical teaching that until the child actually takes its first breath, it is considered part of the mother's body.
Yeah, that was until the 50s. And also there have been trans-positive laws, legislations, and protections in Islam for like 1,000 years. Something like that. I have a book on it that I'm planning on reading, but that can be enough for today. You can figure out what to cut from this. But leave in and make a video clip, even if you cut it, of me saying, if you want to talk about bathroom laws.
Right. Yeah, and I just really want to encourage people to be vocal, because this is one of those situations where we don't need allies, we need accomplices.
Yeah. And also in 1988, gender reassignment surgery was declared acceptable under Islamic law by scholars at Egypt's Al-Azhar University, the oldest Islamic university in the world.
If they can do it, you can do it.
Well, I mean, traditionally, I'm going to say that Islamic scholars have been a lot more forward-thinking and on the ball than Western Christianity. So let's follow their example.
Yeah, most definitely. It's a little frustrating that these ideas have been preached about for literally millennia, and now it's 2026, and we are literally going backwards.
And the first non-Jewish convert to Christianity was, of course, a member of the gender diverse community. So and with that, next week, I forget what we're doing.
Next week, we're doing disability rights.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to talk about the passage of the Americans with Disability Act. And looks like Judah was planning on talking about ending forced institutionalization.
Yeah, and we'll see how I feel. I might throw in 504.
Okay. So, as always, like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. Reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or at dumbdefensespodcast@gmail.com with any questions, thoughts, concerns, or an idea that you'd like us to cover.
Send me a recipe.
Judah's still looking for cookie recipes. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.